Let me tell you a truth most people never realize. Most people don't wake up tired, they wake up distracted. Before their feet touch the floor, their mind is already racing. Notifications, messages, deadlines, pressure, comparison. And then they say, I don't know why my day feels out of control. Of course it does. If the first voice you hear in the morning is the world's noise, don't be surprised when your peace disappears. And then you wonder, why am I stressed? Why am I reacting? Why do I feel behind? But what if I told you 5 minutes? Just 5 minutes of silence can take your day from chaos to clarity. Not an hour, not a retreat in the mountains. 5 minutes. Here's how. The first key point is silence interrupts the noise. It is the deliberate act of turning down the world so you can finally hear your own mind. From the moment you wake up, something is pulling at you. A screen lights up. A memory pokes you. A worry whispers your name. Before you even stand, your thoughts are running a marathon. And you call this normal. You call this life. But tell me, when was the last time you heard your own thoughts without interruption? When was the last time your mind was not competing with 10 other voices? Silence is not empty. It is a boundary. It is you saying not now. It is you choosing to step out of the crowd inside your head. Imagine your mind as a busy airport. Planes landing, planes taking off. Announcements every few seconds. No rest, no pause. That is how most people live internally. Constant traffic. And then they wonder why they feel exhausted even on a calm day. Because noise is not only sound. Noise is unfinished conversations. Noise is comparison. Noise is replaying what someone said 3 years ago. When you sit in silence, you are not escaping the airport. You are closing the runway for a few minutes. No takeoffs, no landings, just still air. And in that still air, you begin to feel something unfamiliar. Space. I once met a man who ran a small grocery store. From morning to night, customers, suppliers, calls, complaints. He told me he used to drive home angry for no clear reason. His wife would ask, "What happened?" He would say, "Nothing." But something had happened. His mind had been crowded all day. One day, he started sitting in his car outside his store for 5 minutes before driving home. No radio, no phone, just breathing. After a week, his wife asked, "Why are you smiling more?" Nothing magical changed in his business. He simply stopped carrying the store's noise into his home. He gave his mind a doorway between worlds. That doorway was silence. You see, most of us are not tired from work. We are tired from mental clutter. Thoughts pile up like laundry in a corner. One shirt is harmless. 2 are fine. But leave them for weeks and the room feels heavy. Silence is how you fold the laundry of your mind, one thought at a time. You look at it. You ask, is this useful? If yes, you keep it. If not, you let it go. But without silence, you never even notice the pile growing. You just step over it, again and again, until one day you feel overwhelmed and you don't know why. There is a young woman I heard about, always anxious before meetings. Her heart would race. Her hands would shake. She believed she lacked confidence, but in truth, she lacked quiet. Her mornings were filled with scrolling, comparing, absorbing everyone else's achievements before she even started her own day. She began waking up 10 minutes earlier. 5 of those minutes were for silence. No affirmations, no music. Just sitting by her window, watching the light change. After a month, she noticed something subtle. Her mind was not shouting at her anymore. It was speaking, calmly, clearly. The anxiety did not disappear overnight, but it softened because she stopped feeding the noise. Silence also exposes the lies that noise tells you. Noise says, "You're behind, Noise says you're not enough. Noise says everyone else is doing better. But when you sit quietly and truly listen, you begin to question those voices. Who told you that you are behind? Compared to whom? On what timeline? In silence, you realize many of your fears are borrowed. They were handed to you by headlines, by opinions, by someone else's urgency, and you accepted them without checking. Silence gives you the courage to check, to ask, is this really mine? That question alone can change your direction. And here is something deeper. When the noise fades, even for a moment, you begin to feel your own presence. Not your role, not your responsibilities, just you, breathing, existing. That awareness is powerful. It reminds you that before you are a professional, a parent, a partner, a friend, you are a human being, a thinking being, a choosing being. In that quiet space, you reconnect with your ability to choose your next thought, your next action, your next reaction. And that is freedom. Not loud freedom, not dramatic freedom, quiet freedom. The kind that begins in 5 small minutes and slowly reshapes the way you move through the world. The second key point is silence builds emotional control. It is the quiet training ground where reactions slow down and responses grow stronger. Most people think they have anger issues, stress issues, patience issues, but look closer. What they truly have is speed. Their emotions move faster than their awareness. A word is spoken and the reply is already fired. A mistake happens and frustration explodes. There is no space between trigger and reaction. Silence creates that space. And in that space, you regain power. Think about the last time someone said something that hurt you. Maybe it was a small comment, maybe it was criticism. Notice how quickly your body reacted. Heart rate up, jaw tight, thoughts racing. It happens in seconds, almost automatic. Now imagine if, in that moment, you had practiced sitting still every morning, practiced watching your breath, practiced noticing thoughts without chasing them. Do you see what changes? The comment still comes, the sting is still there, but you are not swept away. You see the emotion rise and you wait. That waiting is strength. I once spoke to a father who told me he used to shout at his kids for the smallest things. Spilled milk, loud voices, toys on the floor. Later, he would regret it. He loved his children deeply, yet his reactions were louder than his love. He began a simple habit, 5 minutes of silence before anyone else woke up. At first, his mind jumped everywhere, to bills, to work, to yesterday's stress. But slowly he learned to sit with discomfort. One evening, his son broke a plate. The old version of him would have yelled. This time, he felt the anger rise. He noticed it and he chose a different response. He knelt down and said, "Are you okay?" That is emotional control. Not the absence of emotion, but the presence of choice. Emotions are like waves. You cannot stop them from coming. But you can learn how to stand when they hit. Silence is like practicing balance on dry land before entering the ocean. Every quiet morning strengthens your footing. Every minute you spend observing your thoughts teaches you that feelings are visitors, not dictators. Anger visits, fear visits, jealousy visits. But they do not own the house unless you hand them the keys. When you sit in silence, you practice keeping the keys. Have you noticed how regret often follows reaction? A harsh message sent too quickly, a sharp tone used without thinking, a decision made in the heat of the moment. And afterward, you wish you had paused. That pause is not weakness, it is maturity. It is discipline. Silence trains you for that pause. It slows down your inner clock. Instead of reacting at the speed of emotion, you begin responding at the speed of wisdom. And wisdom is rarely loud. It is steady, it is measured, it waits. There was a young professional who struggled with workplace pressure. Every email felt urgent. Every request felt personal. If her manager corrected her, she took it as an attack. Her evenings were filled with overthinking. One day, a mentor suggested something simple. Before opening your inbox, sit quietly for 5 minutes. She resisted at first. It felt unproductive, but she tried. Within weeks, she noticed something powerful. She no longer opened emails with tension. She opened them with awareness. A critical message would come, and instead of spiraling, she would breathe once, twice, then reply calmly. Her environment did not change. Her inner state did, and that changed everything. Silence teaches you to observe before you act, to feel before you speak, to understand before you judge. It reveals how often you react not to the present moment but to old wounds. Someone raises their voice, and you are not just hearing them, you are hearing every voice that ever dismissed you. Silence helps you separate the past from the present. It whispers, "This is now, you are safe. Choose wisely." And that whisper is powerful. Because when you begin to choose your responses consciously, you stop being controlled by moods, by tempers, by impulses. You become the calm center in your own storm. And from that center, your words carry weight. Your actions carry intention. Your presence carries peace. The third key point is silence sharpens your focus. It is the discipline of clearing the fog so you can finally see what truly matters. Most people do not lack talent, they lack direction. Their energy is scattered across too many tabs open in the mind. One thought about work, one about money, one about what someone posted last night, another about a mistake from years ago. And in this mental traffic, they try to move forward. But how can you drive clearly when your windshield is covered in dust? Silence wipes the glass. Not by force, but by stillness. Focus is not about doing more. It is about seeing less. That sounds strange, doesn't it? We are taught to multitask, to respond quickly, to stay updated. But every notification steals a little piece of your attention. Every comparison drains a little bit of your confidence. And slowly, without realizing it, your mind becomes divided. Half here, half somewhere else. Silence gathers those scattered pieces. It brings your attention back home, back to this moment, back to the one thing in front of you. I once met a college student who complained that he could not concentrate on his studies. He would sit with his books open, but after 5 minutes he would check his phone, then a message, then a video, then another thought. Hours passed and guilt followed. He believed he was lazy, but he was not lazy. He was overstimulated. He began a simple practice, 5 minutes of silence before studying, no phone nearby, just breathing and observing his thoughts. At first, his ind felt louder than ever. But after a few weeks, something shifted. When he opened his books, he felt anchored, present. He studied for longer without drifting. His grades improved, yes. But more importantly, his self-trust improved. He realized focus is a muscle and silence is the gym. Have you ever tried to read a page while someone keeps whispering in your ear? That is what distraction does to your goals. You may be working on something important, but the mind keeps whispering, "Check this." Think about that. What if you fail? Silence lowers the volume of those whispers. It teaches you to notice a thought without following it, to let it pass like a cloud. When you practice that every morning, you carry it into your day. A distraction appears, and instead of chasing it, you return to your task again and again. That repetition builds strength. There was a small business owner who felt stuck. He worked long hours but saw little progress. He was busy all the time, yet always behind. When he began sitting quietly each morning, he noticed something uncomfortable. Many of his daily tasks were not essential, they were reactions, answering things that did not need immediate answers, solving problems that were not urgent. Silence helped him see clearly. He started identifying the one or two tasks that truly moved his business forward, and he protected time for them. His workload did not decrease, but his direction sharpened. Busy changed into productive. Focus is deeply connected to identity. When your mind is noisy, you forget who you are working to become. You drift into what is urgent instead of what is meaningful. Silence reminds you of your priorities. It asks quiet questions. What matters today? What deserves your energy? Who do you want to be by the end of this year? These questions do not shout, they whisper. And if your life is too loud, you will never hear them. But when you give yourself 5 minutes, those whispers become clear guidance. Think about a camera lens. If it is shaking, the image blurs. If it is steady, the picture sharpens. Your mind works the same way. When you rush from thought to thought, your inner lens trembles. You cannot see clearly. You second guess decisions. You doubt your path. Silence steadies the lens. It slows the shaking. It allows you to zoom in on what truly deserves your time. And when you learn to focus deeply on one thing at a time, your work improves. Your conversations improve. Even your rest improves, because attention, when undivided, has power. Quiet power. The kind that turns ordinary effort into meaningful progress. The fourth key point is silence reveals what you're avoiding. It is the quiet mirror that shows you the truths you keep running from. Most people are not confused about their lives. They are distracted from their own honesty. They stay busy not because there is so much to do, but because stopping feels uncomfortable. Because in stillness, something rises. A thought, a memory, a question they have been postponing. And so they keep moving, keep scrolling, keep talking. Anything but sitting alone with themselves. When you sit in silence, the mind does something interesting. It brings forward what has been pushed aside. That difficult decision about your career, that relationship that no longer feels right, that hey, habit you promised to quit. In noise, these thoughts hide in the background. In silence, they step into the light, and that can feel unsettling. You might shift in your seat, you might reach for your phone, but if you stay, if you breathe through that discomfort, you begin to understand something powerful. The discomfort is not your enemy, it is a signal. I remember hearing about a man who worked in a job he secretly disliked. For years, he told himself he was grateful, and he was. But deep down, there was a quiet dissatisfaction he never faced. Every time it surfaced, he drowned it with entertainment or extra work. One morning, he decided to sit quietly before leaving for the office. No music, no news, just silence. Within minutes, the thought came clearly. This is not where I want to be. It scared him, not because it was new, but because it was undeniable. Silence removed the excuses. It did not force him to quit that day. It simply made him honest. Avoidance is a heavy habit. We avoid conversations we need to have. We avoid apologizing. We avoid starting. And every avoidance adds weight to the heart. Silence lifts that weight, not by solving everything at once, but by making you aware of it. Awareness is the first step toward change. When you sit quietly, you begin to see patterns. Why do I always react this way? Why do I keep choosing the same kind of situation? These questions are not attacks, they are invitations. Invitations to grow. There was a young woman who struggled with self-doubt. She believed she lacked confidence. But during her silent mornings, a deeper truth surfaced. She was not lacking confidence. She was holding on to an old story. Years ago, someone had told her she was not capable. She carried that sentence like a label. In silence, she heard that memory clearly. For the first time, She questioned it. Is this really true, or did I just accept it? That moment of questioning began her transformation. Because when you see the root of your fear, it loses some of its power. Silence also reveals your desires, not the loud desires shaped by comparison, the quiet ones, the ones you barely admit to yourself. Maybe you want to create something, maybe you want to change direction, maybe you want to slow down. But these desires are soft. They do not compete well with the world's noise. Only in stillness can you hear them clearly. And once you hear them, you cannot pretend you did not. That is why many people avoid silence. It demands courage. It asks you to face both your fears and your dreams. And here is the truth. What you avoid does not disappear. It waits. It shows up in stress, in irritability. In that restless feeling at night, silence gives you a safe space to meet it before it grows louder. To look at your life with UT filters, to admit where you are unhappy, to acknowledge where you are proud, to accept where you need to change. This is not about judging yourself, it is about understanding yourself. And understanding leads to clarity. Clarity leads to action. But it all begins with those few quiet minutes where you stop running and finally turn toward what has been waiting for your attention.